Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We get to hear from Pompey the Clown today to kick off Act 4, Scene 2 of Measure for Measure. So the stuff that's going on, there's a couple of switcheroos in the works. The Duke has worked with Mariana and Isabella, so Isabella told Angelo that she would sleep with him in exchange for Claudio possibly being set free, but instead of Isabella showing up, it's going to be Mariana showing up because Mariana had previously been engaged to Angelo, but that fell apart when her brother drowned along with her dowry and Angelo dropped her. So there's that whole thing going on. But then Angelo sent a note to the jail saying that Claudio should die by 4 o'clock in the morning and that his head should be sent to Angelo by 5 o'clock in the morning. So the Duke is trying to navigate this one too, and he came up with a plan yesterday with the provost that they would kill Barnardine instead and make his head look like Claudio's head, Barnardine being another prisoner who's been in jail for like the last 9 years and was supposed to have died, but the Duke never actually got around to like signing the certificate so that he would be executed. So they're like, we'll do this, and the provost agrees to go along with it because the Duke, who is disguised as a friar, produces a letter written by the Duke himself saying that he's going to be back in 2 days and all that can get sorted out, and then he gives his assurance that, you know, the Duke will forgive the provost for this whole mix-up thing. So along the lines of Pompey, he has been arrested for being a bawd. So he worked in Mistress Overdone's bar/brothel, that sort of thing. He was a bartender there. He got arrested for it because under Angelo all that stuff is against the law now. But he was given a deal that if he helps the executioner, the hangman, a porson, then his sentence can be commuted. So we kick off Act 4, Scene 2. So is this 4, Scene 2 or is this 4, Scene 3? 4, Scene 3. Act 4, Scene 3. We kick this off with Pompey in another part of the jail, and he's sort of being given the tour by a porson, the executioner, and he says, I am as well acquainted here as I was in her house of profession. One would think it were Mistress Overdone's own house, for here be many of her old customers. First, here's young Mr. Rash. He's in for a commodity of brown paper and old ginger, 17 pounds, of which he made 5 marks ready money. Marry then. Ginger was not much in request, for the old women were all dead. Then here is one Mr. Caper, at the suit of Master 3-Pile the Mercer, for some 4 suits of peach-colored satin, which now peaches him a beggar. Then we have here young Dizzy, and young Mr. Deepvow, and Master Copperspur, and Master Starve Lackey, and Rapier and Dagger Man, and young Drop Air that killed Lusty Pudding, and Master Forthlight the Tilter, and brave Master Shooty the Great Traveler, and Wild Halfcan that stabbed Potts, and I think 40 more, all great doers in our trade, and are now, for the Lord's sake. So he's giving an account of who some of these prisoners are, and they are the same people that he used to see all the time in Mistress Overdone's establishment. And he lists off a few of their names, which are probably not their actual names, but they're more euphemisms for what and why these men got arrested, what they did and why they got arrested. And you can bet that there's a lot of sexual innuendo in here, or at least it could be read into a lot of this. The whole thing about old Ginger, that's probably a prostitute for whom he paid too much money, or some such thing, but she wasn't very much in demand at the time. And then of course Peaches could still be like the song Peaches from the early 1990s and that sort of thing. Like just Shakespeare is all about sexual innuendo and dick jokes, and there's plenty of it in here as he's running around talking about who all of the people are that are in the prison. So he does this, and he and a porson get Bernardine. They call Bernardine out because, you know, Bernardine is supposed to be killed in Claudio's place. They're like, come on out here, it's time for you to die. And Bernardine's like, yeah, no, I'm drunk, I'm going back to bed, I'm not dying today. And they're like, no, actually you are dying today, here's a warrant for it. And he's like, nope, not gonna happen. And he goes back off. Like, imagine this, you're on death row and they come and it's actually the day of your execution and you just say, I'm too drunk for this, and go back to your cell. It's always sort of amused me how that whole thing falls out. And while they're having the back and forth about like, no, you're really supposed to die today, and he's like, nope, not having it today, the Duke shows up and he does try to like give some sort of last rites to Barnardine, but Barnardine's just not having it. He's not gonna die today. He's too drunk for anything. He ends up just wandering back to his cell and probably passing out there. At which point Pompey and a portion are sort of dismissed and we get just the Duke and the Provost chatting. And the Provost is like, so do we really need to kill him today? and the Duke is like, well, the condition that he's in, that's really not very good if we haul him off to the gallows like that. So, and the Provost is like, actually, just sort of by happy accident, one of our other prisoners died of natural causes last night, and he looked a lot more like Claudio than Barnardine does. So what if we send his head to Angelo, saying that it's Claudio's head, and then we can take care of Barnardine and buy more time for Claudio at some other point. And the Duke is like, what a happy accident. Yeah, sure, make it happen. So the Provost leaves to chop off this other prisoner's head. And while he's off the stage, the Duke is like, okay, and now I'm gonna write a letter that we'll send to Angelo to let him know that I'm gonna be here in a couple of days, and he's supposed to meet me in a very public place when I arrive, because of course the Duke wants to have a great big public thing for his reveal that he's been there the whole time, and so he can deal with all of his stuff and all of the reveals of the switcheroos and that sort of thing. And the Provost comes back in carrying the other prisoner's head, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go take this to Angelo. And the Duke's like, great, hurry back, because you and I still got some stuff that we need to talk about that's, you know, just between us. And the Provost is like, cool, I'll be back in a little bit. And then Isabella shows up, and that feels like a good place to stop today, because tomorrow we'll get into the conversation between her and the Duke, where we find out if everything worked. I'll see you then for that. Mwah.